Hello and welcome to the September 28th edition of Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder, the most hardcore motorsports program on the internet. This is episode 263 of the series. I'm your host, Adam Jason Sinclair, and tonight on the program, we talk about cartoons, NASCAR, the SRO, and whatever other motorsports series pop into the conversation. This year, NASCAR is celebrating its 75th anniversary, and the Auto Racing League's favorite fan from the funny pages, Gearhead Gertie, is showing NASCAR fandom knows no boundaries. During October, some NASCAR's iconic cars and drivers will feature in the weekly comic strip Gearhead Gertie, including Dale Earnhardt, Buddy Baker, Junior Johnson, Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, David Pearson, and more. Created by celebrated cartoonist Mike Smith, Gearhead Gertie is for everyone who's ever lived for a day at the races. The central character, Gertie, isn't exactly who you'd expect when you hear the word race fan, but she's a reminder that fandom is for everyone. Gearhead Gertie lives for race day, whether she's watching a race on TV or sitting in the grandstands. For her, NASCAR isn't just a sport, it's a way of life. Sarcastic, feisty, and devoted to NASCAR, Gertie's personality was inspired by several real-life racing legends, including 1950s racer Louise Smith, a fearless woman who shared racing stereotypes and helped define the sport for all women after her. As only the second woman to race in NASCAR and the first woman ever to be inducted in the International Motorsports Hall of Fame, it's Smith's fortitude and dedication that helped define Gertie's character. Additionally, Gertie is a deeply devoted fan of the late Dale Earnhardt, and his tenacity and lovable gruffness are also characteristics incorporated into Gertie's personality. Mike Smith has been a professional cartoonist more than 30 years. Smith works for the Las Vegas Sun, which first started running his work while he was still a senior in college. In addition to drawing a daily cartoon 5 days a week for the Sun, Smith also draws U-Turn, a cartoon caption contest for USA Today. He's the author of Nuts for Racing, a collection of cartoons on NASCAR racing. His work has appeared in Los Angeles Times, Newsweek, Time, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. We're now pleased to welcome him to the program. Hello, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. Thanks for coming. I'm doing pretty well, thank you. First off, I have to ask, I know Gertie's favorite NASCAR driver is Dale Earnhardt. Who's your favorite NASCAR driver?
I had a feeling you would ask that question, and it's a good one. Well, since Gertie is somewhat based on some of my interests in NASCAR, I would say that my favorite driver was also Dale Earnhardt.
Cool. Do you follow any other forms of motorsports?
I follow Formula One a little bit, but for me, NASCAR is the major auto sport that I've always been interested in. I've always been interested in it since I was a kid. And growing up in California, you didn't always get a lot of chances to either go to NASCAR races or to see them on television. Years ago, all you could really find were maybe snippets or parts of a race on Wild World of Sports. And it wasn't really until, I believe, ESPN started covering all of the races that people on the West Coast were able to enjoy all of the NASCAR races. So, like I said, I've been interested in NASCAR since I was a kid. I've always been kind of a car nut, which also fuels my interest in racing. But NASCAR is definitely my favorite form of racing.
What inspired your passion for cartoons?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I always doodled as a kid, and if you're going to my garage and look at the old boxes I have from drawings I did as a kid, you'll see that they're usually about three things: cars, airplanes, or trains. And now, as an adult, I'm still drawing cartoons about cars with the Gertie cartoon. So, it's always been something I was interested in as a kid, but I never really took it seriously as a career until I was a junior in college when I started drawing cartoons for the campus newspaper where I was going to school. And once I saw how much trouble I was getting into with some of the cartoons I was drawing, I thought, well, this would be a great way to make a living. And that was really the catalyst that started me on that career path.
Can you tell us more about how Gertie came to life?
Well, Gertie initially this cartoon was called Stock Cartoons, and it was a cartoon that was distributed by King Features Syndicate, and it was the main place that it was published was in NASCAR Scene, which was a national newspaper. I'm sure you're familiar with it, about all things NASCAR. So that's where it was initially seen the most. But as the media landscape changed and as fewer newspapers uh, were covering NASCAR, the clients for stock cartoons kind of dwindled. And eventually I stopped doing it altogether. And I let it sit for a while and then started thinking about, well, how could I revive it? And I started doing a few more stock cartoons, putting them on Facebook just to kind of keep it alive here and there. But then eventually I had the chance of meeting this young Las Vegas cartoonist who had become very successful drawing cartoons about the Las Vegas Golden Knights hockey team. And we started talking via social media, and I'd asked him, how did you, become a cartoonist? And he said, because of you, referring to me. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, when I was in grade school, you came and spoke to my class. And that's what inspired me to be a cartoonist. Well, he then became my inspiration because he was doing these characters that were related to the Golden Knights hockey team. And I thought, maybe I need to do a character that is in love with NASCAR, a character that's the ultimate NASCAR fan. So that was kind of the impetus to start drawing Gearhead Gertie. And I started putting it on Facebook, and the reaction was very strong. And that led to Comics Kingdom picking it up and using it on their online clearinghouse for comics.
Yeah, actually, I've been following it a little bit since I heard about you, and I actually have some. I think there's some similarities in Gearhead Gertie to my own grandmother, because after my grandfather passed in the mid '90s, she actually started being more and more involved in racing. She actually dated a man named Kent Tyler for a short period of time, who you might know. I don't know if you followed any short track racing. He was known as Speedway, the Speedway Clown. Speedo, the Speedway Clown. And he was a traveling clown. He traveled all over the country doing short tracks, and my grandmother went along with him for a little while, and I think that was kind of a thing for her later in her life. That's kind of awesome. So I think that Gertie's a pretty cool woman. So.
That's a great story. There are some people that follow Gertie that are that kind of identify with her and kind of see similarities with themselves in the Gertie character. And I had the chance to meet one of her followers at the Fontana race. I think it was 2 years ago, Auto Colored Speedway race, and a reader of Gertie, and she looked like Gertie. And I thought it was great that here's somebody that can really identify with Gertie's love of NASCAR, but also physically kind of has a similar appearance. So it was a nice opportunity to meet a fan and get to see how into the comic strip they were.
I know you've had a few strips where Gearhead Gertie's been actually at the races. Which racing event will she be attending next?
She will be going to the Las Vegas race,
Awesome.
which is coming up. So I'll be there, and I'll probably be doing some drawings from the press box that I'll post during the race, and possibly on to Phoenix after that.
I know you mentioned you did some cartooning in school and college. Do you have any special courses you took to become a cartoonist?
Uh, yeah, that's a really good question. You know, I never formally studied art. Like I had said previously, I always doodled as a kid, and I did have some art classes when I was in college, but they were just, I don't know, for some reason they were very boring for me. In terms of art, I'm basically self-taught. I mean, in college, I studied U.S. history, which is probably, not necessarily a good major for getting a job, but it was probably a good major for learning how to think and analyze history in order to be a political cartoonist. But no, I never had any formal training. It's like playing an instrument. You know, the more you practice and the more you do it, the more your art becomes better. And if you were to look at cartoons that I drew when I was in my 20s, when I started in the Las Vegas Sun, and then compare those cartoons to cartoons I draw now, being in my 60s, they would look like they were drawn by completely different people. It really evolves and changes a lot with the team.
I know Gearhead Gertie is your primary cartoon that you work on, but do you have any other cartoons in the works?
No, I don't have anything else that I'm working on. Gertie, like I said, I do the political cartoons for the Las Vegas Sun, but Gertie is a nice break. She's a lot of fun to do, mainly because I like NASCAR so much. And it really has taught me to have a lot of respect for these guys that draw daily comic strips because you have to create everything from scratch. It's not like you have material that you can necessarily read and glean ideas from. You have to know these characters and you have to know how they would think and act in every situation. You have to know what they would say in any kind of situation. So you kind of have to be inside the head of this fictional character and understand them in order to make the comic strip work. So it's a much different challenge than doing other kinds of cartoons, but it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it, and it's good to see that there's other people that enjoy it too, and that have the same view about NASCAR as
My final question for you tonight: what is Gertie's favorite NASCAR event?
Well, she likes Bristol, Talladega, and Daytona. She's a big fan of any kind of track where there's going to be a lot of action. And a lot of the cartoons that I do about Gertie aren't necessarily about a specific news event that's happened in NASCAR. I mean, the stock cartoons used to focus more on that. But Gertie is just more about her love of the sport. But there are times when I've worked in themes about Bristol or Talladega or sometimes certain events that have gone on in the NASCAR news that like a playoff for Gertie. We've done a few cartoons recently on Ross Chastain and his driving behavior this season and last. And so that's always been a good subject matter for Gertie. And probably need to come up with something on everything that's been going on with Denny Hamlin and work that into a cartoon at some point. Recently, I've been working on a series of cartoons that are related to the 75th anniversary of NASCAR. And these cartoons have been a little bit about Gertie's appreciation of the history of the sport, and also a series of cartoons on how she became into NASCAR. And we've got a few that deal with her interest in Lee Smith, and she visits the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So that's the theme that I've been working with now, and I think we have about 7 more weeks of cartoons that deal with those issues that are coming up.
Well, thank you once again for coming on the show tonight, and look forward to following Gertie's adventures in the future.
Great, I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye bye.
Once again, that was Mike Smith, who is the senior cartoonist for Gearhead Gertie. Readers can find Gearhead Gertie NASCAR's 75th anniversary strips on ComicsKingdom.com, rolling out every Thursday throughout the month of October, starting October 5th. Are you a race car driver, crew chief, pit member, track owner? Maybe you're just a huge fan of the sport. Contact us to get your spot on the show. After all, you deserve your 15 minutes of fame, and we'd love to hear from you. Easiest way to do that is to go to SpeedwayDigest.com, search for the racing news section at the bottom of the page. You can find me, Adam Sinclair, down there somewhere. Might not be on the first page. You might have to scroll down a few pages, scroll up a few pages, whatever it is. But you'll find me on there, and you'll find my full bio there, and the easiest way is to get in touch with me. Be sure to check out past episodes of Thursday Night Thunder, as well as the other shows on the Speedway Digest Radio Network at speedwaydigest.podbean.com. You can also check out the show on Facebook by searching for Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder in the search bar, or by going to any of your favorite podcast different ways of getting it, which can be on a lot of the major radio apps now have a Speedway Digest Radio Network on there. Be sure to check it out. I also invite you to read the articles covering all aspects of motorsports at SpeedwayDigest.com. I have put out a few the past week, but not quite as many as I normally do. I'm not going to put any out this weekend, unfortunately. I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be out doing some Halloween stuff, which I'll get to in a minute. So, be some fun stuff coming up on my blog page. If you're a fan of South Florida, and who isn't, be sure to check out the latest news and information about our slice of paradise at my blog site for Borplum's Fantastic Finds. We found on Facebook at FABORPLUMBS Fantastic Finds. On Twitter, the easiest way to find on Twitter is at PBHappening, now called X, I suppose. And by heading to Borplum's Fantastic Finds, that's FABORPLUMBS Fantastic Finds.wordpress.com. As I said, I'm going to be doing some Halloween stuff the next few weeks. It is the spooky season, after all. We're going to be heading out to Howl-O-Scream at SeaWorld Orlando this week. We're going to be heading out to Fright Nights at the South Florida Fairgrounds next week. We're going to be heading out probably to Fright Nights at the South Florida Fairgrounds the following week. And I believe we might be doing the thing there in Sebring. I'm not sure. The Terror Trail. I did get a chance to check that out from the outside this past weekend. In addition, I did get to go to Sebring this past weekend for the SRO event, as I mentioned last week. We had Eric Powell on the show last week. It was wonderful to have him on the show. It was great to see him on Saturday, to talk to him a little bit before the race. He didn't have the best of weekends, but he did finish competitively on this Friday. He finished in the 30s on Saturday, which is unfortunate because he did have some auto problems. And he finished in the top 3 on Sunday in the race there, so that's pretty awesome indeed. If you haven't followed SRO before, you really should. SRO is a fast-growing form of motorsports. They all have sports cars, GT3, GT4, touring cars. It's really cool to see. Not quite as high-tech or as high money as some of the IMSA events, but still pretty awesome to check out. I did say in the past that you can get a lot closer to them than you can at certain events, and that's still the case, although there were quite a few people there for the race on Saturday. But you were able to get fairly close. The only problem about Saturday there at Sebring is the fact that it was fairly warm still. Eric Powell did allude to that on Thursday that we talked to him last week. It's still pretty warm here in South Florida. It's getting a little cooler, which is a good thing. You're not going to melt as soon as you step outside the house in the morning, but you will be melting if you stay outside for too long. I think that's kind of my issue that I had last weekend on Saturday. We were there for about 3 hours, 3.5 hours there at the track in Sebring. It was a great race. I didn't take any pictures, which isn't normal for me, but I just didn't feel like it. I did wander around and talk to Eric Powell a little bit. We went through the pits a little bit. There weren't a lot of cars in the pits. Most of them were sitting up in the false grid or in the area there where they do the inspection. And there were also cars on track. I watched the TC America's race. That was pretty awesome to see the TC America's race. but I did not watch any of the other races there this past weekend. We did see some practice, we did see qualifying, but we did not watch any of the races aside from the TC Americas race. Now, I will get into it about Sebring a little bit if you're interested. Sebring International Raceway is a fabulous facility. It's very convenient for some people. It's about 2.5 hours, 3 hours from here, probably 2.5 hours. But it's a pretty good facility there, very historic, been around since 1950. So it's kind of cool. Haven't done any repaving significantly since 1950. It's on the concrete and asphalt track. Concrete, most of it is from the original bomber base. It's a World War II era bomber base. So that's pretty awesome. It's known for its bumps. But in the past years, they've been doing some upgrades to it, which is a fabulous thing. They've done some fencing upgrades. They've done some viewing upgrades on sprouts and mounds and stuff. But they also have a couple of grandstands there, which are pretty cool on top of some of the mounds. What I think they should do, my opinion, of course, is they should expand the grandstands. They should expand the grandstands by a lot. They should get a lot more places for people to sit. Because right now they have people who go wandering around with chairs and all that. That's fine, but it gets old after a while carrying your own chair. So what I would suggest to them is put in more grandstands. We got 2 of them now, 2 absolutely amazing grandstands. If you had more, that'd be fabulous. No reason you can't have them on every single mound there. You can sort of have them back and forth. You're not blocking the views of anybody. They can also expand and they have expanded some of the seating on top of the garage areas. We've had it out there for the SRO race as well as the Brazilian supercar race we went to a few years ago. The SRO race we were there for a few years ago. The seating on top of the garage area is nice. They have new permanent seating up there. They also have some seats where you just sort of plop down on the concrete. You got like a place where you sit on like the edge of the concrete. I know in the future they will be adding more stuff. I'm sure of it. But right now it's pretty good. It could always get better though, and that's kind of the thing. Another thing about the SRO race, they did charge a parking fee, a $10 parking fee for everybody coming through the gate. I don't think that's the best thing to do for there. They make money off the tickets for SRO, but whatever. It's not my call. I'll be interested to see how it works at Daytona, though. We'll be there for the Daytona 24-hour race. That is in a couple of months in January at the Daytona International Speedway. The 24-hour race, we'll be there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I believe we are checking out on Monday for that race. So we'll be there for the entire race, which will be awesome. It'd be cool to see that. So I'm interested to see how the parking has changed there. I know they're doing some parking structure adjustments around the track. I was told that they're going to be eliminating one of the primary parking areas, which was parking lot 4, which was located right across from the airport, near the Outback Steakhouse there. So that's where I had been parking for most of the past decade, right out there. So unfortunately, they're not going to have that parking available. It doesn't seem like. So we'll have to see where we park and how we do. I'm hoping for fabulous weather there. I know that's not always a guarantee in January in Daytona, but we'll see how it goes. I'm also hoping for great weather this weekend at Hollow Scream. If you're heading out to Hollow Scream at SeaWorld Orlando, I hope you have a great time. I'm going to be meeting up with a couple of people who I met online. Some people I've known in the haunt industry for a few years, including Unmanaged Media is one of the guys I'm going to be talking to, Jeremiah there from Unmanaged Media. Need to reach out to him, probably do that in a few moments, and just make sure we're still all set. But we're going to be doing that. It'll be a family trip to SeaWorld Orlando for Hollow Scream. My in-laws, my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, father-in-law, and their significant peoples. So that'll be cool. Haven't been to Hollow Scream before. In addition, what I'm going to be doing in a few weeks, which is why I'm going to update you on the schedule for the show here. But in a few weeks, we're going to be heading up to Maine, which will be interesting. And I'm going to be doing Haunted Overload. That'll be the 15th of October. We'll be hanging out there. So what I'm really thinking is we're not going to do the show next week because next week we'll be Fright Nights. This week we're heading to the Hollow Scream, as I said. On Thursday of next week, we're heading out to Fright Nights. We're going to do Fright Nights on Friday as well. It's still sort of up in the air because on Saturday we do have an event here at my community in West Palm Beach. If you know, you know. If you don't know, probably not going to tell you. But for local people, I post information about that be sure to head out here. It'll be awesome. We're going to have some games, have some fun, have all sorts of things. So that'll be next weekend. The following weekend will be in Maine. We're being heading up there on Friday the 13th, in fact. And if you don't do a Halloween event on the weekend of Friday the 13th, there's definitely something wrong with you, especially when you're heading to Maine. So we were thinking of going up to Bangor and seeing some of the Stephen King stuff there from stuff that inspired him, some of the historic things. But we probably won't be doing that. I can probably get to Bath, stuff like that, but not Bangor. On the 15th, we're heading to Haunted Overload. That's in Lee, New Hampshire. That was the winner of the ABC Halloween competition they had a few years ago. I've heard some great things about it. I've seen some awesome videos about it. If you look up Haunted Overload on YouTube, you'll be impressed as well. I asked the people here at Fright Nights what they'd recommend. A few of them didn't have any real clue. And one of the guys who I trust here, the haunt designer, said you better check out Haunted Overload. It's in that area. And it is only about an hour and a half where we'll be staying. So we have tickets for that. We're heading out there on the 15th. In addition, we're doing a little bit of Halloween painting here on the 4th of October. So that'll be neat. I'm probably going to post that on my own personal Facebook page, which you can access if you know how to get there. If you don't, then it's fine. I'm not that hard to find. So you can check that out there. I've got it on Instagram as well. Instagram @forplums, FABORPLUMBS. That'll be where I post the pictures of my Halloween art that I'm doing on the 4th of October. In addition, I don't really think we've got anything going on the 21st and 22nd I know of. Probably going to be doing some Halloween decorating. Hell, I'm sure we'll be doing Halloween decorating on that weekend. We'll also be doing Halloween decorating, of course, on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Because Halloween is unfortunately on a Tuesday. Who the heck puts Halloween on a Tuesday? But that's how the calendar goes. So we'll be heading out there. We're here on Halloween. It'll be awesome. If you guys have any great Halloween plans, please share them on my Speedway Digest Radio Network page for Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder, or for Upland's Fantastic Finds Facebook page. I'd love to hear about what you're doing for Halloween. Once again, we'd like to thank you very much for listening tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again on October 19th in the Thunderdome as we discuss the major issues in the world of modern auto racing. Have a great night, and thanks for listening.